I would like to thank the Global Leader Spotlight for giving me this opportunity to spread awareness of Narcissistic Personality Disorder, shortness, NPD. What's the hardest pill that you've ever swallowed? May I tell you about mine? When I met my Prince Charming, it was in January 1985. A whirlwind romance. A year and a half later, we're married. Slowly, over time, I could notice changes. Or were they really changes? Maybe I was starting to learn who I really married. I remember our first date, and we were going out to a restaurant. He walked in front of me the whole time, not beside me. Once I felt comfortable with him, I brought it to his attention. No response from him, no acknowledgement, no, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I treated you that way. There was nothing. This was a major red flag that I missed. This demonstrated superiority. We were married now, and I had to go to the field to pick him up. Well, he always criticized my driving. So I saw him standing a little ways away from the tractor, and I thought, I'll pull him between him and the tractor. He can slide in the driver's seat. I'll move over, and I don't have to listen to any criticizing over my driving. I pulled into the field. He ran for the truck. Once he got into the driver's seat behind the truck, in the truck, his legs went stiff and his head was just about at the ceiling. And he started hollering at me. You tried running me over. You tried running me over. And I looked at him and I started to laugh. Do you know how ridiculous that statement was? We hadn't even been married a year and he thinks I'm trying to run him over. And at this point, I had my daughter from a previous relationship sitting between us. She was scared. I was scared. There was nothing more said. From that moment on, I was reevaluating everything that transpired, trying to figure it out. For starters, I'm not even married a year, and I am compensating so I don't get criticized or demeaned about my driving. Who made him the driving police? He's not perfect, and yet I still don't say a word. I'm still scared to confront him. And there's another point to make. This is the first time I realized that paranoia plays an important role in his mind. From this point on, I was very conscious and paid attention to learning more about him. Over time, I found myself Googling and trying to figure out his mindset. I noticed every year consistently, from the middle of November to the first part of January, he was out there. And I mean out there. And what I mean by this is when he walked in the house or when he was in the house, he would give off an aura, a vibe, and everybody would disappear. You could feel it. And I felt he was so unstable at times. And at this time period, every year, he would disappear and take the shotgun with him in the truck. I assumed that he was out shooting coyotes, but I'll tell you, I I paid attention every time he came home to this house and if that gun came in the house. And over time, I could see and feel him slipping deeper into this mental state. And I didn't know how to help him. After 28 years of marriage, he finally admitted to me he had depression and wanted to go to the doctors. I made an appointment and took him in. The doctor had him fill out a questionnaire. Brent looked at me as he was filling it out and he said, "This doesn't look good." I said, "I don't care. We're here to get help. You have to be honest." The doctor came in, read the results, and looked at me. "Have you ever feared for your life?" I lied. I didn't want my husband to know that I was afraid of him. The weeks The doctor put him on medication, and 6 weeks later, we had to go back for a follow-up. The first thing the doctor said when we got back into his office 6 weeks later was, I couldn't let you leave without medicating you. And it took all the power I could to hold back and not break down and cry. I thought, we're finally getting help for this. This is going to help our marriage. But the doctor warned him, don't ever go off the medication or you're back at square one. Yep, you guessed it. Once he got feeling better, he went off the medication. And from that point on, the doctor had me coming in once a month. What is going on, Katie? What is going on? I was telling him everything. And finally, it got to a point at one of the visits, the doctor looked at me and he said, I suspect he has narcissistic personality disorder. But in order to be sure, he needs to be assessed. That'll never happen. Brent will never go for assessment because he feels that there's nothing wrong with him. It took 28 years for him to actually admit he had depression. So I started going to a counselor, trying to figure out my life. I wanted coping skills on how to live with my husband, how to make this marriage work, only to find out that avoid him as much as possible is what I kept getting from counselors. I would ask Brent to come with me to the counselor. Why would I go? There's nothing wrong with me. I wasn't sure what NPD had meant or encompassed at the beginning when I started going. So as I'm sitting in my truck, I Googled it. And yes, I read all the traits. And this is where I literally broke down in my truck in the parking lot, waiting to go into the counselors. It wasn't one or two traits. It was all the traits, and I was dealing with them every day. And so some of the traits are lack of empathy, grandiosity, entitlement, envy, the need for excessive arrogance, demanding special treatment, and using other people for their personal gain and having no remorse. I went back to the doctor and we discussed all this. And I kept saying, the picture's bigger. Paranoia from him is ongoing every day. There is a term called dark tetrad, which is derived from dark triad. This was a concept that was derived by Aaron Buckles, Daniel Jones, and Delroy L. Paulus in 2013. The dark tetrad includes one more component, which is sadism. And the dark tetrad is made up of narcissism, a belief of exceptional grandiose of oneself, Machiavellism. The narcissist will use you or go to whatever means to get what they want with absolutely no remorse. Psychopathy, the narcissist's lack of empathy and exploitation of others, and sadism. This is where the narcissist derives pleasure out of pain, hardships, and humiliation of other people's experience. You see, it was getting to a point in our lives that I couldn't even tell him the hardships our family or friends were experiencing without receiving a smirk, a smile, a chuckle. He was getting enjoyment out of other people's pain, and I was losing respect. I would look at him, and in my mind, I would think, who is this man that I married? Well, it was like peeling back the layers of an onion, trying to figure out what traits am I actually dealing with. I do know for certain I am dealing with a dark tetrad. The more I learn, the more the puzzle pieces are falling into place. I realize I cannot help him. He needs to acknowledge that he has a problem and wants to fix it. Brent cannot self-reflect. It's always everyone else's fault. I know now what I'm dealing with, and I realize that I can't help him. We were drifting apart as I mentally couldn't handle staying in this abusive home, which was turning into physical abuse. Then Brent would say, I want you to leave. Just leave. Think of it as an adventure. Or, why would you hire a lawyer unless you want more than you deserve? He didn't love me. He didn't want to work on us. As I was detaching, I was reevaluating everything in our lives. I spent many years trying to figure this all out and help him and our marriage, only to realize it is a very hard pill to swallow when you finally realize that you've been living in a fantasy all this time. The person who you thought would have your back, your best friend, never really was. I was a pawn for him once he extracted everything he could from me. He wanted me gone. Our life was contractual. No empathy, no feelings, just a contract. I was mourning a love that never truly was there. He never loved me. He was incapable of unconditional love. I remember going through marriage classes with Bishop Mahoney, and he said, PPF, if both people put their partner first, you're going to have a strong marriage. But if one person's the giver and one person's the taker, it'll never last. Victims or survivors is what I call myself. I'm a survivor. I allowed it to happen. So once I realized that, and I know I have experienced psychological warfare at its peak. When you're processing, trying to make sense of it all, you tend to be hard on yourself for not seeing all the signs. Truthfully, it wasn't until I was about 8 months out that I started to actually understand the damage I allowed him to do to me. I'm still getting triggered 7 years later. Then I reevaluate the circumstances to understand why I was triggered, and that becomes another area for me to work on. The biggest obstacle for me was forgiving myself to allow this to happen. When you're going through this whole process, I quickly learned you have to train your brain to outweigh your fears. Thank you for joining me on this journey. You can reach me on my website at cultivatingfreedom.ca, Instagram, Cultivating Freedom 2024, or email me, cultivatingfreedom2024@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. And you can read my journey, Cultivating Freedom. It wasn't easy leaving a 33-year narcissistic marriage. It's not a normal split up, divorce. There's nothing normal about it. And 40 years ago, when we were married, you never heard the term narcissistic personality disorder. And yes, you experience many, many feelings as you're going through the process. So please reach out. I'd be honored and happy to hear from you. And I wish you all the happiness. Bye for now.